Welcome, bienvenue. As keen-eyed amongst you will notice, we are Cladding Matters once again, bashing the drum to make building safety safer. And I'm glad to see in the virtual studio, of course, we've got Hamish McClare of Search Convey, who is our esteemed head honcho, and Steve Day of the Building Safety Scheme.org. So I'm going to start, as is traditional, with Hamish.
Well, had it been 25 years ago, possibly even 20 years ago, we might have called this Burning Matters, because there's a whole lot of paperwork which really does need to actually sort of go up in flames. Well, actually, because it's not. What do you do about e-signatures? Can you ignite e-signatures? We've had some desperate things going on this week in terms of the sort of what the cladding series that we speak of. Which is why we felt it important to make sure, even though we had trials and tribulations, we ourselves have those with technology and people and gathering all of us together. But it is important because there's been so much highlighted this week, which really adds to the vicious nature of what society has imposed on people who are living in properties which have questionable cladding. And a lot of them actually don't yet realize it. But with what has been unfolded this week, which what goes on within either bureaucracy, with what the regulators are doing or not doing, it is a sad, sad time indeed to know that so many people are quite happy to see people left at risk, both financially and mentally and physically as well, because of the potentials of fire breaking out in what should be a safe home.
Wow. Well, look, we have our man from the midst of it all, Mr. Steve Day. Now, I believe you've got very, very interesting updates to provide us. Let's call it that, shall we?
Yes, I'm afraid I do, and it was quite a shocking day this very day with the safety certificates that we use to declare to ensure the lenders that a building is safe. So for your viewers, we have a EWS1 form, which was created by RICS, and it's a form that basically tells the lenders and insurers how safe or dangerous a building is, and gives an indication of how much combustible material is left. So B2 means that remediation is required. There's combustible material present and it needs to be remediated. B1 is this really dodgy ground where the remediation is done, but there's still combustible material left on, which gives you high insurance and potentially gives you sellability issues. And that's from the Association of British Insurers, who want to see combustible material removed, and all the implications that has on insurers. And then also Property Mark, the largest estate agent body in the UK, they've said it makes houses and flats unsellable where you have this B1 rating. So it's a very important certificate. Now, in the news today on BBC, on their web pages online, there's a story of a very, very well-known company that issues large numbers of these EWS1 certificates. And unfortunately, according to the BBC, there's been some allegations of a fire engineer using their details, having their details used by this company falsely to basically make representations of these certificates incorrectly. And that individual is all on the BBC News. I won't go into it because there's probably going to be some legal matters on it. But have a look. It's a very sorry tale, and it has huge implications for the fire industry, where confidence in this EWS1 process is already, at a low ebb. Because, frankly, even if the process worked, if it ended you with permanently high insurance, there's something wrong with the very design of it, I would say. So it's not just what we're seeing today, but it is a significant story of potential, and I say potential, corruption in the fire industry, not just the construction industry. And you'll see on the 6 p.m. news tonight and the 10 p.m. BBC News, you'll see all about this. So I urge all your viewers that are interested in fire safety, building safety, consumer protection, To tune in at 6 p.m. There's a good 3 p.m. piece on it tonight. So we're grateful to the BBC for continuing their excellent efforts to help us. Now,
Am I right?
that's
Am I
one
right in
piece of
thinking?
news.
Am I right in thinking that when you yourself were trying to get the fire brigade to certify that certain areas were in fact a potential fire risk, there was quite hard to get them to get their arises into gear?
Yeah. So I went through 3 stages. So I asked the fire brigade to investigate some breaches of fire regulations that I found on the fire shaft. 16 stories, pretty high. They didn't want to help initially. Then I sent them more evidence, and then they decided they would issue a notice of deficiency, which basically is the first stage of a defective building. But then I sent some more evidence, and then they upgraded it to be a notice of enforcement. So that was promised in December, but unfortunately, it hasn't appeared on the website. So we have chased the fire brigade. It's now the 31st of January. So it's around mid-December. So for something so urgent, you would have thought it would have been up by now.
It's almost as if they're dragging their heels,
or someone's dragging their heels for them.
Well,
but whichever it is, we want our enforcement notice. So if any fire engineers, fire brigade employees, any managers, please get the Royal Artillery Quays residents their enforcement notice, because they're a little bit worried about what's in it. But that's a good prelude, actually, to the council meeting that we had on Wednesday. Now, we put a motion. It's a very clear motion. And what the motion was saying was the council's motion was calling for a review of EWS B1 ratings and the difference between insurance and so on, which is all very nice, but we don't really want a review. We've had enough reviews. We're 5 years in. We want an EWS A1 rating, which anyone that's followed our campaign.
You want some action.
Yeah, well, we just want a rating. We want the council to call for it. Now, we know they don't have the legal ability to actually enforce that, because the law is an ass, as they say, and it really does. But it's a political motion, because the local authority says, yeah, don't leave all that banned material on people's 16-story fire shaft when the material is banned on new buildings. Because if it's banned on new buildings, then someone took a view that it's pretty not good and dangerous to have. So why is it being left on existing buildings? So I wanted a simple upgrade to the motion, and it was tabled by the opposition to the Labour Council, and it basically said, you've got to do something about this banned combustible material, take it all off, give them an EWS A1 rating. So then they made exhortations in their rebuttal that they have no legal authority to do that, and it's a political motion. It isn't what they have in terms of authority. However, as an enforcement authority, the council do have something they could do about the building regulation breaches. You know, the enforcement notice scope stuff. So they really could have done something, but they rejected the whole motion. And what was really difficult for me was they didn't have the decency to phone me up and ask me about the enforcement notice. They saw that it wasn't on the website, and they thought, we've got Mr. Day. He's lying about it. Or something, I don't know. But basically, they didn't phone me up, and I had to basically watch them strike out one of the most important pieces of our motion, which was to say, the London Fire Brigade has issued a notice and we welcome it. You know, and it was confirmed by the Assistant Commissioner of the Fire Brigade that would be on the website. So, you know, it was very difficult, and it kind of belittled our motion, because if you take away the illegal part of it at the time of construction, then you're just left with the B1, which is, you know, under contest at the moment. We think it should have an A1, but there's no doubt that illegal stuff at the time of construction. So they neutered the motion, and they did that on purpose to belittle our campaign. But I say to the council, you promised that you would solve this problem for us. You said you would fight for us. You haven't asked for the material evidence for the combustible material in our fire shafts. When is that going to happen? It's been 7 months now. And you promised me a meeting now to talk about the way forward. So will you please put something in my diary, send an email, and let's have that meeting and let's get a proper amendment down, which actually helps the 1,000 people that are desperately requiring your help. Thank you.
It's a bit sad, isn't it, Hamish, when
Yeah.
people have to take effectively this kind of radical action to get the bloody wheels in motion.
Well, I think one of the sad aspects to me, we're technically, well, we're not really politically motivated, neither Steve nor myself, in terms of what we're trying to bring into the minds of the general public. And it's not just the general public. There are still hundreds of thousands of people who are actually caught up in this, and they haven't got a clue about it yet. Because what we've seen with false signatures, like those that have been admitted to today, like different councils and Steve's sort of local councillors, they are putting politics ahead of the safety and the welfare of their residents living within those council areas. Now,
it seems very popular to do that sort of thing internationally, isn't it?
Well, the problem is, and there's a whole rash. There's a whole rash of information which has come out from the Labour Party today. They're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're fighting for this, we're fighting for that. But for the time being, let's not worry about those people at fire risk. Those people are being booted out of their homes. Those people are being taken to court. Let's just forget about them. We don't have, because it's so important that our party fights for our party. Oh, the people. Well, no.
Yeah, it's when it gets party political and people forget that there are human beings involved and that they've been living for a long period of time with this Damocles sword swinging across their combined throats, and that by kicking this down the road, you're inviting ill providence to land. And the worst that could happen, and it could be on their watch. I'm surprised they don't want to score a quick win in the eyes of the populace by doing something that would become a popular positive. Anything to do with ensuring that Grenfell or similar never happens again scores well with the public. I don't understand why they're not grabbing the bull by the horns.
I think we actually sort of see, Gareth, one of the biggest challenges as well. We saw how long this post office scandal got kicked down the road.
Yes.
And how many people have been allowed to die in a sort of situation because a lot of them were getting on sort of age-wise, and it went on and on and on. They were booted out of their properties, were booted out of their houses. All sorts of things happened to them. However, people hid behind it. People hid behind it. And this is public knowledge now. We know all over the place. All we need to do is look and see what Steve's been doing, what he's trying to bring into the world. And this knowledge, which is public knowledge now. We know that builders have purposely cut corners to profitize on what they're building, to put residents into a position where they're unsafe within those properties.
Well, what they're doing is objectifying the residents. They're ignoring that they're humans, ignoring that they have a pulse and that they need to live. They just see them as boxes, and people and things are occupying those boxes. Steve, it must be frustrating for you not just living through it, but trying to get people who can really change the direction of the whole of this thing to get off their high knees and actually make a blooming decision.
Well, I think, when I sat there in the council chamber on Wednesday, I didn't hear any urgency. Everyone talks about like the money and the insurance, and so it's actually about safety. We've waited for 4 years for the work to start at Royal Artillery Quays, and anyone that looks online, check Royal Artillery Quays cladding on Google, and you'll see the amount of defects we've got. 90% of the building is packed full of firelighters with plastic fixings. That's in addition to the fire shaft, which is the new stuff we found out. None of that's been fixed. We're still stuck here every night, risking our lives as we sleep. If something went up, and with the growth of e-bikes, I saw one in our stairwell. How many more are going to come in? Can you really be sure that the fire risk isn't increasing dramatically, silently? So really, as I sat there in the council, what I wasn't hearing is urgency. But also, do you know what I wasn't hearing? I wasn't hearing a call for prayer, because they should. They need to pray, because they don't know if tonight's the night they're going to have blood on their hands for ignoring the 1,000 residents of Royal Artillery Quays when they asked for an EWSA 1 rating and they asked for their remediation to be jolly well started. And
Well,
now we're fighting
I
fighting.
I think Guy Fawkes will be particularly happy with the powder keg that you've got wrapped around your buildings.
Well, I'll just keep Guy Fawkes away if he wouldn't mind. Have an extended vacation. Guy Fawkes won't be welcome at Royal Artillery Quays. No offence to the chap.
No, we have similar beards, and that's where the resemblance disappears. Hamish, what is there to do for the common man and woman to be able to get on these days when our way is so conspicuously blocked by, to quote, cowpats from the devil's own satanic herd?
Well, I feel, I mean, this has been sort of demonstrated because people do need to get involved. In this society, people are not interested in the individual. Providing you're in the sort of mainstream and you're a great, whether you be a conservative, we've seen this. This has gone on through. Basically, we had a conservative parliament. Now we've got a Labour parliament, and they're all, there's lots of talk. There's lots of talk goes on here, there. People are denying it. But I think the worst of it is, as Steve just sort of mentioned, people are trying to hide behind a bit of paper. Now, as we know, bits of paper aren't even worth the value of the signature at the bottom of that particular thing. And it's so easy to send emails. It's so easy to get 8 Labour councillors to stand up behind each other as Labour councillors, or 6 Conservative councillors, or whatever councillors they happen to be, spouting forth about the idiocy of, this hasn't been done and that hasn't been done. But when they totally ignore the residents they're meant to be representing, that really is a sad, sad day indeed. We have voted for these people. Those people depend on the contribution of the people that vote for their salaries, for their livelihood, for their pensions, but they really are only interested in standing up and saying, I'm a member of this, whatever party it happens to be. And it doesn't matter which one it seems to be at the moment. Any of those that could make a decision and do something about it, whether it be at local council level, whether it be at government level, they're ignoring the safety of people living in this permanent situation that is affected, such a mind-affecting situation as well. It does sound like that.
And I've got a way forward just to bring a bit positive. So that's the problem. And my plan, because there's a lot of people watching all of this EWS1 fiasco that are contacting me and saying it's not just this one company, Steve. There's others. I'm going to find out every single EWS1 that has a question mark over it. And I'm going to make sure that we continue exposing these bad practitioners that are potentially committing fraud, or worse, deliberately giving ratings in collusion with fire engines. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but if this is the case, it proves my point that you've got one point of accountability on this fire engineer that can get the builder off millions of pounds by changing a rating. That's a massive conflict of interest, because he wants the work from the builders. He's going to want to do the right thing by the builder and not what's right for the future work. And that is the problem we face. But what I'm saying is, fine, let's blow up EWS1, let's blow up PAS 9980, because frankly, they condemn you to permanently high insurance, and very, very questionable practices continue. Let's remove all of that. Let's restore trust in the building regulation compliance, which are a lot stricter. And let's make sure that they pay every single time they breach until it's done properly, outside of the courts, because you don't want court delays, consumer protection legislation. And I'm pleased to say that there's a bill coming up in spring called the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. So you've heard it here first. I haven't said this publicly, but what we're going to be doing is amending it to put in the Earl of Lytton's consumer protection legislation, and that's an exclusive for Cladding Matters. And I will say, I haven't had the opportunity to say this, but these two gents that you're watching beside me have been Stormont supporters, and they lift my spirits each week when I come on here. But their support, the creativity, you'll have heard the music at the beginning, it's absolutely brilliant. And thank you so much, chaps, for your continued support.
That's very kind.
We will win this.
Well, now look, what I've done is I've changed our logo at the top to a QR code that goes straight through to be able to sign the building safety petition, which the Earl of Lytton is powering through or trying to power through. Please, guys, scan that off your screen now. Grab your phone, scan it off the screen, and sign this thing. Signatures mean you're far more likely to get the right result, which is to prevent this happening in the future and provide support for people it's happened to now, like poor Steve here. Look, thank you very much for your time. As I said, just before I go, one last time, please scan the QR code, grab your phone, point it up there, scan the QR code, and what will happen is one more signature and you can do it. There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that literally goes to the Earl of Lytton's website and to the Building Safety Org. I would say to all of you here, there is hope, but only if we work together on this. And part of it is getting involved. What Steve's doing here is frankly bloody marvelous, and I wish other people would stand up rather than hide behind legislation and be scared to make a change. I think people are very scared to do anything they've done. But here's the problem. We've got people trapped in homes that can't be sold, can't be insured, and then frankly have become a money pit because you can't do anything with them. And, you know, I know a friend of mine who is in a similar situation. He owns a flat. He was renting it out. It's barely covering the mortgage now. So now he's got effectively a millstone around his neck that he cannot sell and he can't even insure. So goodness, I mean, I bet he's praying every night nothing goes wrong. Thank you so much, Hamish. It's your inception that helped us put this together in the first place. And Steve, we are only thinking positive thoughts towards you guys, and we hope it ends up being somewhere that it needs to be. And let me just take this off. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part. We will soldier forth. I mean, in a way, I look forward to a time when we don't need this channel. But at the moment, I think the more voices talking about it, the more likely action is to be taken. All of you out there, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, try and maintain that mental health and realize there is a positive future ahead. The light is at the end of the tunnel. We're just going to keep powering towards it. Until next time, goodbye all.
There's a tale about some folks with hammers and some nails. They'll plunge through the moon, but their word always fails.